Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crack. This is episode number 142, and our book is Broken Crusade by Stephen B. Fischer. Look at that, we even have both covers. We posted several questions on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our discussions via Twitter, YouTube, our site, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning, if you haven't yet read the book, definitely check it out before listening to this post, as we'll be discussing the book from start to finish in great detail. With that, let's dive in. As always, Carrie, did you like the book?
It was there. It was a book. Okay.
Reluctantly, I have to agree with it. I liked some parts. I liked some stuff.
I think I've just come to the conclusion that the Black Templars are not for me. They're kind of rigid and zealous at the same time, which I know sounds weird, and just like a little too crazy.
You know what I've decided? I think much like the sisters, I think they make better side characters than main characters. Like I think they are at their strongest when they are bold. I think they're at their strongest when they're there to provide that very rigid, bulwark mentality of like of being that very unyielding, very serious, very honor-driven character that's balanced out with like a Uriel Ventress, or who's balanced out with some other type of more personable, more human character. Like I would almost love to see, Black Templars in the Death Watch, right? Partner them up with a Dark Angel and a Space Wolf, right? Main characters, though, they're not giving main character energy, as the kids would say. They're just a little, I agree with you, they're just a little too...
So, when we read, I don't remember which, was it a Dawn of Fire book? Or was it God Blight? I don't remember, but one of those books where Lucerne, where he, goes and meets up, now that he's a Black Templar, he goes and meets up with other Black Templars, and he's just
that was that was the last Guy Haley Dawn of Fire book. I can't remember which one it was. Somebody will definitely know.
But where he meets up with those guys and he's like, I'm going to help you do this. And they're like, we're all dying for this. And he's like, whoa, that's really stupid. Why? Like, we can work this out. And they're like, no, you're not one of us if you're not willing to die for this. He's like, well, I'm not. And I thought that was just them, right? They're a little warp touched.
they got a little bit of the space madness.
Yes, the space madness. And then we find that one ship here.
Mm-hmm.
And how they're all like, we're not leaving, we'll die here. But why though?
Right.
You don't have to die here. Nope, we have to. It's our honor. That's a dumb honor. And then to have even, Emmerich kind of feel that way about stuff. I'm like, all right, you guys are too nuts for me. You guys are like the Sisters Repentia. We're just going to be here and die for the Emperor. Okay? Boring.
Yeah, transitioning into stuff that stood out to me. There was a scene. So actually, believe it or not, one of my favorite characters in this book was Hadrick. But which he we'll get into why I liked Hadrick.
Felt like he was taken straight from Knights of Macragge. I don't remember that Primaris's name, but he even died just like that Primaris did.
Pretty much goes out in a hail of gunfire. Love him. Thought he was great.
Protecting humans. It's like, it's like his heart grew 3 sizes that day and then died.
I liked him a lot. But justice for Hadrick. But when he's sitting there talking about it, he's just like, this is not our purpose. Our purpose is to be out there fighting and killing and honor. And Emmerich has to remind him, our Primarch was renowned for building defenses. Like, Yeah, I mean, Rogel Dorn was rooting and tooting just like the rest of them and could definitely throw down and have a good fight. But we are defenders. We are
Mhm.
not. We're going to talk more about this, but like that whole, you could really see it in display here. This whole world eater / Black Templar like mentality of nope, nope, we just go out and kill and damn to the consequences. I was a little shocked, and we've seen this before. Speak that book that you just referenced with Lucerne, where everything is cowardice. Well, we should stay back here because that's the more tactical thing. It sounds a lot like cowardice to me. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean by being so rigid.
Oh my god. But it's just, it's
It's
such
like
a.
it's like, you know, if you're not first, you're last, right? I mean, that's really how they are.
And I think you and I have both seen that video with the lady who's complaining at the restaurant, but that's all I could think about when they were just like, well, so that just sounds a lot like cowardice. I was like, that's a wild place to start.
Right.
That's
Yes.
a wild place to take this conversation. Like, I felt a lot of that way with a lot of this. That's
Like,
a hot take
That escalated real quickly.
real quickly.
A simple, maybe we shouldn't do that would have been a fine starter, but no.
They definitely have Dorn's brutal honesty, right? Of just, nope, this is what I see, this is what I'm thinking, and you're gonna get it. Like, I like it, but I also, wow, that's a bold stance to take. It's I liked that. There was one thing, and I think I marked it in here. So I had I have the linen bound edition. Oh god, and I forgot my glasses, and I even said to Carrie, I was like, I'm not gonna need my glasses. I'm just gonna make my
Be sure to hold it with your pinky out. Yes.
pinkies are out, my darlings. But there was a wonderful conversation when Emmerich is talking with the missionary, and he talks about faith, right? And he's like, I think I've lost my faith. And she says, what is faith?
Oh my God. That's the exact quote that I marked. Exact quote.
Oh my God. I absolutely loved it. I loved, what is faith but sacrifice when others have nothing left to give? It is.
I just loved when she's like, what is faith? Have you ever seen faith? I've never seen faith. I'm like, oh, that's so great. I love that on so many levels.
I've been a priest of the God Emperor for almost 100 years, and I must confess, I have never seen it. Oh my gosh, just this nice, real thing. And it also reminded me when she says, like, that is all the God Emperor demands, my lord, and such a thing cannot be lost. There's one of my favorite quotes, and I think I've quoted it before, but it's in Dan Abnett's Iron Snakes series. There's a couple of the Iron Snakes are talking, and this younger space marine like makes a comment about like, we're not built for this, because they're like on a guard detail, and one of his older space marines is like, yes, you are. You are built to follow what the God Emperor tells you to do. If he tells you to, hold a temple up, you'll hold that temple. If he tells you to stand naked on your head, you're going to do it because that's what you're built for. And he's just like, oh, dang. I loved that quote. Like, oh, it's like, that's a good quote. And it reminds me of that. And it was good. I liked her character in general. But
she was my shining glimmer through this whole thing. Even though she reminded me way too much of the blind not Jedi from Rogue One, but still.
Oh, for sure. She's like not a psyker sensitive. Like when some of the stuff when they were just like, which way should we go? Oh, this way. The air is colder. I'm like, okay, and the Space Marines can't sense that, can they?
That's right out of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Pretty much. But it was one of those things where I was like, they can't, can they? Did you like... Let's talk about Emmerich.
Hey, Mr. Fischer, I've read books too.
Did you like Emmerich as a character? Was he a good leader?
Ooh.
That's a hard question.
It's hard to say about a good leader. Because he was so full of, like, I'm not saying that leaders can't doubt.
Right.
But, like, it was to the point of, like, this is getting ridiculous at times. And
I would agree with that.
And I feel like there's too many times he didn't make a decision because he was afraid of the doubt. It was, I don't know. He wanted to
Well,
be a
he
good leader.
did.
He just, I don't know. I'm not forming words very well tonight either. So.
No, I feel what you're saying. Like there were too many times when he was doubting things and he was questioning things. And yet other times he just committed, right? When he's like, we're landing the ship on that planet. And his Void Master is like, what? Why would we do that? Like questions him. Nope. Don't question me. We're doing this. Okay, so you've been doubting like literally everything else, but that you were 100% sure on that one, huh? And again, it's very human, which actually adds a very nice depth to his character, right? That he has these human doubts. But I agree with you. It was a little Repentia-esque. For characters, I feel as though we keep getting presented characters who are allegedly very devout and faithful, as in full of faith. They just question themselves constantly. So they're supposed to be faithful, but they don't seem to have much of faith.
Which I guess leads into why it's a broken crusade.
Well, that and literally because of, these warp storms and stuff. Just chaos everywhere. Just chaos is everywhere, y'all.
Chaos. Chaos everywhere.
Exactly. Which, I mean, it is. It is everywhere. The warp is everywhere. But yeah, I thought he definitely cared for his men, and I loved the depth of the emotion he had for all of his men, everyone under his command, everyone he had ever trained, right? He knew this person, he knew their gene line, he knew everything about them. Like he was very much, he almost felt like more of like a great instructor.
Oh yeah.
Than a martial leader.
Yeah.
Right? We're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. I remember him when he was a neophyte.
But now that you're saying that, and with this other thing we were talking about, like with the doubt and everything, when they run into that marshal who was one of his neophytes that he trained, it's like, wow, you never rose to that rank. But now I'm thinking about it, that's probably why. He was a better instructor, and because he's got all this doubt. He's never...
Right.
It's funny because, like you're saying about the ship, like when he is 100% sure of himself, everyone else is like, dude, what are you doing? And then when he's questioning himself, everyone's like, dude, we need to do this. It's really kind of interesting that way.
Yeah. He, I think he probably was at the right rank he needed to be.
Yeah.
But maybe even arguably. Yeah. He felt more
I don't think he would have been a good marshal. Like, I think.
No, I would agree with definitely a better Castellan. I liked him as a character. I did. I liked that when Hadrick is like, oh, these humans are so weak and worthless. He's like, no, you can't say that. But you're totally right, though. He's right. Like, I can't argue with that. Like, I can't argue with that I'm going to, but I shouldn't be arguing with that. I did find his whole in the beginning, and they kind of dropped this like a bad habit. His distaste of psychers. Like with the astropods and the navigators, and he was basically like, I don't think we need these at all.
But I wonder if that's also like a reference to also a callback to almost the Horus Heresy, because, after the Council of Nicaea, it wasn't good enough for Dorn to just tell them, don't be psychers. He imprisoned all of them.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that was kind of harken back to that, just this big, mistrust of psychers.
It could be. It could be. But, like, they are a necessary evil. So just his, like, really dwelling on, like, we don't need these things. Ugh, constantly. But then they kind of drop it. Really.
It's like, because I haven't gotten through the siege yet, but I wonder if Dorn ever lets them out.
I mean, I have to assume yes, since they have navigators and astropods.
Well, I mean, he still had he had those, but like his librarians. Nope, you guys.
I have to imagine he does.
You guys,
but they even say that
they
don't do librarians. They don't do any of that.
The
Black Templars don't.
Oh,
the Imperial Fists have librarians, but they don't. Remember, we read that one book.
Yes, the one book that we keep memory holding. Yes.
Like, I swear to God, the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, oh wait, no, this also happened in that book too. It slowly but surely is like, meh. almost like a psyker is pulling it forward on me.
Oh, crap. Maybe that's why we don't remember it.
Psyker was just like, don't worry about it.
Yep. It'll all come to you at a proper time.
So, along those lines, this book really focused on the juxtaposition of the Black Templars and the World Eaters, right? Like, Dravik and Imric were like dealing with very similar problems, right? Like, there's that one scene where Imric has all of his boys, especially Hadric, just like, nope, I want to go fight. I want to go fight. We're going to go fight. We're not doing this holing up in here and helping the humans stuff, right? This is so frustrating. And then you have Dravik, who's like, okay, so I've got this plan and I have like a little bit of a tactics thing here. And all of us guys who are deep in the nails are like, we just want to go kill stuff. It's like, oh, y'all kind of are different sides of the same coin, aren't you?
I really like that they put these two factions together just because of Sigismund and Sevatar. Wrong group. Sigismund and Karn. You know, with the whole chaining of the swords and everything. I was like, I kind of like it when these two guys go together. It makes me, wonders like, hey, do you guys ever study the fact that one of Sigismund's closest friends was Karn? You ever mention that, or is that scrubbed from the
I have
annals?
a feeling that's scrubbed. I actually really did like when Dravik says that, when he's just like, yeah, Sigismund, man, he was a beast in our fighting pits. Like that just
like that's original to you guys,
right? Like, I wonder if that just went like water off a duck's back, right? Where he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're weird. Or you're just spewing some nonsense, right? Or if they're just like, we don't talk about that.
Like Fight Club. We don't talk about Fight Club.
No, I was thinking more like Bruno. We don't talk about Carno. We don't talk about that. That was in the old days before he figured out y'all sucked. I did like the pair up. I thought it was an interesting pair up, and I thought Dravik and Imric in particular were an interesting opposing forces. Was it a compelling matchup overall, though?
Oh, yeah. The rigidity of the Black Templars and then the insanity of the World Eaters, especially when Dravik, did the ultimate sin. He fucked up. He trusted a demon. God, that was so great. All I could think of was Animal House. You fucked up. You trusted us.
All I could think about when the Carver and like the Wheel and the Beast and the Lady of Thorns are all fighting, I was like, these hoes ain't loyal. Like, what are you like?
Well, it's not the fact
you got involved in the politics of demons.
And then, Carver, tossed her into the pit, and he's like, and the rest of you guys go too. It's like, what? Even your dog? You're awful. Oh, that's what's going on. Oh, wait, the demon betrayed him in the end. I did not see that coming.
Definitely did not peg the Carver of being. I will say really quickly, so I listened for a lot of this. I listened to parts of this on the audiobook because I was traveling back and forth between a hockey arena, and the narrator's voice for the Lady of Thorns was quite lovely. Because obviously men, I have a little bit of a complaint with men doing women's voices because they always just kind of go breathy and light. But he added like a childish thing to her, so she sounded kind of like a little girl, but like delivering these like really awful statements. So it was actually really good. He did a really good job on that. Did we like him as an antagonist? Did you sympathize with him at all? Or
no, he's a World Eater. I'm not going to sympathize with the guy. And honestly, I loved it when the Lady of Thorns, when she was about to be tossed in, and she said, you have no idea how much worse this is going to be. And he's like, I can't imagine anything being worse than you. Like, oh man, did you just hear him say, hold my beer and watch this? Because that's exactly what Carver did. So you made a mistake. You really thought that they were going to let you like not have the nails and then everything be cool. Like, no. It's, I think that's one thing that kind of drives me crazy about chaos with some of these factions. Like, in a way, it's like the Night Lords and even the Alpha Legion kind of have, like, I think, the better run of it because they don't trust any of it. Or even, even the Thousand Sons, they know exactly what line to cross with this. And then you get, like, the World Eaters, who make these, who's just like, well, we're just going to make these bargains, not understanding you can't trust any of it. So it's like when you guys fail and flap around and fall, well, I don't feel sorry for any of you. You trusted demons. Oh, the Iron Warriors. That's another one who doesn't really make those bargains with demons.
Right. And when they do, like when both sides, right, all of those factions, like when somebody in their party does make a deal with a demon, everyone else is like, ugh, you dumbass.
Yeah, so it's like the World Eaters and the Word Bearers. There's like, oh, we're so happy to do this. It's going to be great for me. It's never great for you guys.
But now hear me out here. Hear me out. I have decided that the best World Eaters are the ones that are given, that have depth in actual characterization, right? I feel like far too often we're shown just the bloodthirsty, I'm going to kill everybody World Eaters, right? Like we see a lot of those in books, and they're actually not all that compelling because they're just
because they're just rage machines.
Yeah, they're just rage machines who are there for, guess what? This is going to shock everyone, but skulls for the Skull Throne and blood for the Blood God. I like a World Eater who has depth. So like one of my all-time favorite side characters was Arian from the Fabulous Bill series, right? I loved. Now he discovered that he just had to keep himself high on heroin basically all the time, right? He had all of those like drugs going in his system to combat the nails, right? And he specifically, remember he was talking about like when he was thinking about his skulls of his brothers on him, he was always like, yeah, they just gave in to the nails, and that was really sad to watch and sucked. I liked take a drink. I liked the idea that Dravik was the nails. Like he recognized that was a prison in and of itself. And that was not, he wasn't built for those streets. So making a deal with a demon who you know that I got the impression that Dravik knew not to trust these things. He was not a fan of them. I don't think he knew just how bad it was going to be with Carver. Obviously, he definitely underestimated the Carver. So say we all, honestly. But I liked the concept that no, the nails are so bad. I would prefer to willingly go into this trap than to fall into that trap. That's interesting.
That is a good point.
Again, the World Eater characters, I think, are at their best when they're trying to deal with the nails and reconcile with them. And I always think of the Black Legion series from Aaron Dembski-Bowden when what's his face?
Starts with an L. Name starts with an L. The Vorath?
Literally every character in there is just gone. All of them are. But when the Thousand Son is talking about looking at his World Eater friend, right? He just constantly is looking at him like, yeah, he's deteriorating from the nails. Like when he talks about like the ticks and stuff, and he's like, yeah, it gets worse later. Like this is him when he's still a little cogent. It just got terrible at the end there. Trying to fight against that, right?
It's like my favorite World Eater probably is the one from the Karn novel. The one that went to go find Karn because he wanted to reunite the Legion. And then of course, he gets his head cut off at the end because as Karn, infamously says, the blood god cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it flows. But he was the one that had depth. He wasn't totally prey to the nails, and he just wanted a brotherhood. He had, good ideas. And then of course, well, World Eaters are just their own worst enemies in the end.
Very much so. And but I always talk about how much I really like the World Eaters, and that's the ones that I like. I really like the tragic guys who were like, oh no, this was such a bad thing. Like we have to try to combat this because they are capable. Like obviously his plan doesn't go through and he definitely underestimated the Carver, but he had a plan. Like you can see that there was something, they were capable of so much more than just being bloody, mindless rage monsters. And there's a tragedy to that I just love. So
Well,
liked him.
even that tech marine. Yeah.
The Warpsmith, yes.
Yes, I mean, he was fascinating.
Oh, he was very fascinating. And that was another one though that like Dravik's reaction to him of just like, ew, like you're a little too much in with the chaos, although which was rich coming from him. But did you like his little demon companions?
No. No, I mean, nah.
She really did. I liked the Lady of Thorns. I feel like with Khorne, we're not often shown female presenting, because a demon, really, I have to say, a demon, like, does it actually have a gender, or is it just it can be whatever it wants to be, right? The idea, quite frankly, the idea of like this young, like, girl running around with all of her thorns, just torturing people, was kind of amusing, visually amusing. But I liked her. I like seeing female I like equal representation, and I would like to see some more females in this male-dominated blood god space. Okay,
sure.
Yes, queen, slay for the blood god. And I liked the Carver. I thought the Carver was very creepy and weird, and you knew you shouldn't have trusted him. Knew he was trouble the moment he walked in.
The Carver. The Carver. I mean,
oh, I feel like they all probably have names like that though. Like there's probably a Flair in there.
Right. I'm just saying, like, I would trust like a Lady of Thorns more than I would trust a guy called the Carver.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Lady of Thorns sounds so regal. The Carver sounds like
pretty
exactly
sure
what it is.
I have a young adult fantasy novel downstairs that's titled Lady of Thorns.
You probably do.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also kind of more delightful. That just makes it even more delightful. Scander Kane. Scander Kane is the name of the Thousand Son.
Yes. Well, I knew that. Lorvine. I knew it started with an L.
Lorvine. You're correct. Lorvine. Thank you. Lorvine Ukris. See, now that you gave me the first part of it, I like when he mentions, like, I still need to see the book where he dies, because he's one of my favorite. Look, I like a world eater who has some personality. I don't really like the slavering, just like, not my favorite thing.
I mean,
if we wanted personality.
If we wanted that, we could just go read about some Eversor.
Pretty much. Let's switch over to the humans for a second, because I feel like we haven't really given them their due. The two real human characters that we follow in here are Liesel and the missionary, right? They play pretty important roles in the book too. Were you invested in either of their stories? Did you like them?
Only in the missionary. The Liesel thing just annoyed me. I can't even explain why. It just did.
Okay. First off, let's talk about Liesel first. Let's talk about her, because I think it was probably very true to life. Like, true as in, like, to her, what her life would be.
Mm-hmm.
That she never really does anything. Like, she just kind of exists amongst these giants, right? Which is probably very accurate to what it would be like for her, right? I loved that she took the apothecaries or Narthecium, and she was able to give it to the Black Templars. Like that, I was like, oh, hell yes, this is so good for you. I love this. But I don't necessarily know that it made her compelling, because she was just kind of this small creature,
right,
existing amongst these giant men, right? Like the scene when what's his face, when the guy with the apothecary, when he gets his head blown off, and she just kind of ducks down, and she's like, I'm safe. They're not going to come up here and waste this on a human serf.
Right.
Okay, and she was right, by the way. She was right. I think I was kind of expecting a little bit more from her. Again, I think it's probably very
With all the build-up
realistic.
that was going on around her, I was expecting that too. And then it's just like, okay, yes, she did a big thing, but at the same time, like, okay, and
Yeah, and I think
it doesn't have the apothecary's gene seed in there, you know.
no, that was
And I was sad when he died. Like, talk about exit stage left.
oh my god. Well, and again, I think like on one hand, I like the concept that they don't all go out and blaze the glory.
Well,
Some
yeah,
of them
it was just
bleed out in a Thunderhawk with a human looking over them. Like
It just
it's not
seemed, I don't know. Like again, exit stage left, and then you know, it's
agreed
like
100%.
like it was not as bad, but almost have been as bad as like. But she's just sitting there, and she's like, you know, it was really sad when the apothecary died right in front of me, and you'd be like, wait, what? When did that happen? It was, but it wasn't too far from that.
Like I'm glad that he died on screen.
Yep.
And it was so I did really like when she was talking about later how she still felt the warmth of him in her hands. It's like, oh man, that is devastating. But I guess I wanted a little bit more from her. Like I wanted her. She starts out as this like menial in the chirurgeon's quarters, right? She's not really a chirurgeon. She's more of like a nurse. She's almost more like an EMT. Not
She's
even
like
really
a
like a
nurse's
nurse.
assistant. I mean,
Yeah, she's like
honest.
an EMT where she's like, yeah, okay, I can do some basic stuff, but the people who actually know what they're doing need to come in here. I was kind of expecting her journey to be like by the end, she's like, okay, yep, I am almost like I'm an RN now, almost a PA because I am, you know, I've learned so much and I've gone along this. And you kind of get the impression that she really is kind of serving as like a PA by the end of this because everybody else died. And again,
I mean, kind of.
Probably realistic.
It was more realistic because honestly, it would have been less realistic if suddenly she developed all this knowledge. Like how she was a survivor is really what it came down to. And yes, it meant hiding, but at the same time, it also meant that she knew what the most important thing to do was. She also knew that it'd be better if she stayed with the Black Templars and tried to either make it out on her own or get caught by the World Eaters. So, of course, she was going to stay. Somehow.
Right. I think I was just hoping for a little bit more from her. And
yeah,
she just kind of flitted about. And now I mean, again, through necessity, she kind of rose up through the ranks. And now she's one of the more senior people through necessity. I don't know. I was hoping for a little bit more. Again, probably a little bit more realistic. I don't know that necessarily made her compelling. The missionary, though.
She was compelling.
Let's talk a bit. Her intro was wonderful.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, they should definitely. This is like for a servitor. Any job is for any person. And then he's just like, yeah, you're the missionary. Okay, gotcha. I like that Emmerich puts that together. I like that a sort of friendship. Yeah. Something akin to friendship kind of blossoms between the two of them. I also very much appreciated that. I was really worried. I was like, oh man, we're going to get to, because of all that focus on the psyker stuff at the beginning, I was really worried by the end she's either going to ascend to sainthood or like be like, oh, by the way, I'm a hella powerful psyker. Let me just kill all this stuff right here, right? Like I was worried they were going to make her.
That would have been really, really weak.
Yeah, like I was worried they were going to make her artificially more than just what she was, just a blind old woman full of faith.
Mm-hmm. Again, she was the blind, not Jedi from Rogue One.
Very much so.
Instead of saying, you know, I'm one with the Force, it was I am one with the Emperor and the Emperor is one with me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I really liked. It's Donnie Yen. I can't think of that character's name.
I can't either.
From Rogue One.
Yeah,
he's played by Donnie Yen, and he plays him wonderfully.
Oh yeah, it was a great character, great actor, but can't remember the name.
Yeah, we went to see that movie in the theater when it first came out, and we went with some of our friends, and their son, who is my daughter's age, like that was his favorite character. And spoiler alerts, when he gets killed, oh my God, he was wrecked. He was wrecked because he was like, oh, not him. Yeah, him. Everybody in that one. But I totally agree with you. She was basically that character where she was just so driven by her faith. And again, that was a nice, you have this Black Templar who has all of the gifts of the Emperor, right? Literally all the gifts of the Emperor, questioning himself and doubting himself. And then you have this weak, frail human who's just like, nope. Like, she probably had doubt and questions, but the way she presents it is just, as you said, I am one with the Emperor. I have my faith. What else does he need us to do? Keep moving forward.
Yeah, talk about, like, you know, an unlikely person being there.
Right. Like,
blind old woman.
Unlikely.
Yeah.
And she survives. She gets them through. The end hit me in the feels a little bit because I liked Hadrick. Him burning him in general made me sad, but when it's like, nobody can set eyes upon this room, and she's like, oh, it's a good thing I don't have vision to set upon it.
I did laugh at that pretty hard.
I liked that, but it was also just a nice when he just like softens and they talk about how he's just like, yeah, how's it going? Like, you are welcome to stay here. So I'm explaining the scene to my husband, by the way, and I was like, oh, and she has his Thunderhammer, Hadrick's Thunderhammer with her, and she's like, oh, he'll need this, and he's like, I'm sorry, how does she have his Thunderhammer? Oh, it's on a grav plate, like it's on it. And he's like, oh, okay, continue with the story.
No, she was just dragging it behind her.
She's just carrying it on her shoulder, like, oh, by the way, thought I would want this.
I was imagining her dragging it behind her like all Paul Bunyan style.
More like when he gives her the Crozius, I'm like, oh man, I just pictured Pyramid Head with his giant sword screaming behind. That's her going through the room. It's like,
she would swing it with just as much style as a Pyramid Head too.
Oh my God. I did love when Hadrick brings back the Crozius and he's like, I gave that to the missionary. And Hadrick's basically like, be so for real right now.
Right.
Like, what is she going to do with this? It did take me momentarily out of the story when he gives her the Crozius.
That was the death that killed me. The chaplain.
That's a good point. Yes, that one
Dant.
was also. Dant. The apothecary messed me up. Hadrick had me messed up, and Dant. Because Dant was... I was a little worried that Dant was going to die from the beginning, though. I was like, oh, you're not making it out of this book alive because you're too cool. Like, you're gonna die. You're gonna die. I'm sorry, friend. You shouldn't have been so sagely and important.
Says, and if we've learned anything from Angels of Death, the chaplain always goes.
Yeah. So that was one that my daughter was like messed up when the chaplain dies. She was messed up. She liked him a lot because he was wonderful. Chaplains, I feel like we get presented two types of chaplains. Rigid, not very interesting, or just flat out jerks.
Yeah.
Or just the heart and soul of this entire group of people. Like, just the perfect, we love you.
It's true.
That's pretty much who we get presented here with chaplains. But I did, when he gave her that Crozius, I was momentarily ripped out of the book because then I had to think of the last human we saw who had a Crozius, Spinoza. Spinoza is able to carry that because they did strip it down a little bit so that she could, a human could wield it. And she carries it in power armor. So I'm like, okay. Now you can drag a lot of stuff that you cannot pick up, right? Like you can drag... Right? Like, just for, if your husband was driving you crazy, you drag his body. You're not picking him up and throwing him anywhere. Just random examples.
We've all been there.
That did take me out of the book for a hot second there. I was like, how is this going to work? So I did like when Hadrick was like, be for real. Like, seriously. The Black Templars having chaplains at all is a little funny to me.
Yeah, aren't they all chaplains at heart?
Even they need someone. All right.
Well, it's like they always talk about, therapists need their own therapist, which makes sense because when you get all those problems spilled on you all day, you got to talk to somebody.
Do you remember that really crappy action movie from like the earlier mid-aughts, SWAT? The tagline was, even the police need to call 911.
Hey, I actually have an affinity for that movie.
Look, just because it's a bad movie doesn't mean it's a bad movie. Okay, there's lots of those. My goodness. But I am saying.
I mean, it's got Colin Farrell, and he's always nice to look at, and Samuel L. Jackson, and that one chick that's in everything. Whenever they're like, we need a badass Hispanic, get her on the phone.
Michelle Rodriguez.
Yes, and what's his name? Jeremy Renner. I mean. Then you had the guy from Dead Poets Society. I mean, come
on. Do you want to know my favorite fun fact about Michelle Rodriguez? She got arrested several years ago, and her options were that you could either do community, like X hours of community service, or you could go to jail for X days, and she chose jail.
Interesting.
She was like, nah, I'm not about this community service bullshit. Just send me to jail. I'd rather... Because it was like, I think it was like something stupid, like a month in jail or like a year's worth of community service. And she was just like,
Jesus.
Yeah, she was like, nah, I'll do the time. I'm like, that, no wonder she plays a badass so well. I don't know that
she's been in on the inside.
Yeah. I'm just throwing that out there. All right. Let us discuss the $62,000 question.
Are you proud of me? You mentioned a movie that I've seen.
Okay. But it's what? Like, there's all these wonderful movies from the early aughts, and I'm just like, oh, have you seen this cinematic masterpiece? And you're like, no. And then I'm like, oh, but then here's this kind of like crappy, bang bang shoot 'em up movie, and you're like, I love that movie. Like, yeah, okay.
Sometimes I just like to remind you that I've seen Mimic in the theater.
Why? Anyways, because we went and saw like every movie in the theater.
Yes.
Including all of that gnarly bad
I was
stuff.
in college. There was literally nothing to do. We went to the movies.
You know what? That's pretty much what we did too. Like, you saw everything.
Yep.
That came out, good, bad, indifferent. Why
Pretty
not?
much.
Actually, I think the last movie that I saw in the theater was that Baby Girl movie, and whew, do I have some opinions on that. Anyways, focusing on this. $62,000 question here. In the end, was it worth it?
For the Black Templars, I'd probably say yes.
Feels so wasteful.
But we got a prelude to that early on, though, with that ship.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're staying here and dying. But why?
But why? But why though?
You really don't have to. So, yes, I think that the Black Templars, wasting in the name of the Emperor is something they feel like they have to do, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
It's like, seriously, like they're just like the other side of the coin from the World Eaters.
Yeah, that's true. Just expendable, right?
Mm-hmm.
The World Eaters, even in the Heresy, the World Eaters, like, they were renowned for the number of casualties they took.
Oh, yeah.
Arian even says, apothecaries were not super popular with the World Eaters.
Nah, you're supposed to walk it off.
Yeah, he was like one of a handful of apothecaries because they just they weren't about that lifestyle. And yeah, the Black Templars, I mean, obviously they have our apothecaries. They're a little bit more mindful than that, but they treat their own lives pretty expendably.
Mm-hmm.
Is that even a word? God,
no,
that just
it's
came
not,
out of my
but
mouth.
I kind of liked
it's
it.
Not. Yeah, you know what? Go with it. I have an English degree. It was I don't know. Like the whole time I'm like, wow, you came down here with how many brothers? And you have one who's in a coma who might not wake up.
That's it. And him.
You.
Yep. He said he came down with 40, I think.
Yeah. And there's like a handful of you left.
Not even that.
Fingers full of you left.
I mean, 1.5 if you think about it.
Yeah. That to me would feel like a massive failure. I don't think Bob would look happily upon that if that were his boys.
No, I mean, we weren't really huge fans of that book, Hellbrecht, but
right.
But there was that great line when Gulliman's like, "You remind me of Sigismund," and Hellbrecht's like, "Oh, you honor me." He's like, "I didn't mean that as a compliment."
No, not the way that you're thinking.
Like, you don't need to throw yourself at something. Is basically his whole thing, which is like, so yes, he would have a problem with what the Black Templars did. He's like, well, I guess you guys mission accomplished, kind of, but at what cost?
You've won, but at what cost?
It's
and it is
almost a Pyrrhic victory.
Very much so. I mean, they say that they are eventually able to kind of, like, okay, we started cleaning this and we started cleaning this and we started cleaning that, right? Once the rest of the Black Templars get there. But man, you fought a massive demon engine that was sort of doomed from the beginning because of all of the stuff going on there,
this
right?
This bad boy can only cram so many demons. We can only get so many demons in this bad boy.
should have upgraded to the 3-row SUV for this.
Right.
It's like we've got a Suburban's worth of demons. Like the old school Suburbans, like where you could all sit in the trunk too.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of like a 78 Suburban.
Yeah.
If you had a friend whose mom had one, I'm just gonna picture the demon engine now as just a demon-filled Suburban. It would be pretty scary, honestly. You kill the warlord, but it's not like he was a super cohesive force, right? Like Dravik, he was orchestrating stuff, but the problem with the world eaters is not that they have great tactics and a plan. Like, yes, they had that. They're arguably probably more problematic with him dead, because then you just have a bunch of berserkers running around, right? There's demons everywhere. Demons. And I mean, I guess you're going to clean it eventually, but it just, I'm with you. I was like, wow, that was a lot for very little.
Yep. And you pretty much have lost your ship.
Yeah.
It's never going to fly again, which is what the shipmaster said.
Although I do like the idea that it'll eventually, because they mentioned this too, like it'll eventually just become a structure or probably a shrine on that world, right? It began, like, you can picture 500 years from now, right? Like, oh yeah, no, the Black Templars had to land their ship. Although the story will probably grow in the telling over the centuries. But this idea of, yeah, this was once a ship and now we are in its hollowed walls and shrine, and you can see saints already being anointed.
They can build their own 15-minute city out of it.
That's right. Exactly that. Hopefully less tofu construction. And more, good stuff. I liked parts of it. It wasn't a bad book. I will say right now, all of the action scenes in this book are great.
Oh, I agree.
He writes combat very well.
It just didn't have that hook for me. Like that,
that's true.
Like Witchbringer did. Like Witchbringer, I was invested in that book within the first chapter. And maybe my expectations were too high for this one. I expected the same. And instead, but what I just kind of learned is that, honestly, I think it's just the Black Templars are just not my cup of tea. It was
right.
like we had some people in the Discord and we were talking about some re-releases of books that were actually coming out for the Black Library celebration. And we had some people that were just like, I'm not going to get any of those because I don't care about humans. Okay. And I might have felt that way actually not too long ago, but honestly, reading so much of the Astra Militarum stuff has really turned me around. I was like, man, these guys are fascinating. How they're surviving in all of this. And so, like, just for me, the Black Templars, they're not my cup of tea. they're like you said, like I think when you and I were like texting and you're like, I think they make a better side character. I was like, you're 100% correct, because like I liked them in Morven Vol. They were great in Morven Vol.
Oh yeah.
I like Lucerne. But he's not his, but he's, not his own main character. I didn't like Helbrecht. I thought that book was kind of rigid and boring.
Here's the other thing about Lucerne. Lucerne was raised up through the Unnamed Sons.
Right.
Now, where do we see Lucerne most? We see him with his human companion. He's almost like the guy. They're all like a Gotrek and Felix pair for the 40k universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely Gotrek, but they're. It gives him some more character and some more persona. Some of the other Black Templar characters I love Lucerne forever. Oh, he's my boy. If Guy Haley ever kills Lucerne, we're gonna have some words. I like him, but I like there's some. I always like them as side characters. I cannot remember what book it is, but there's a book with the Death Watch and there's a Black Templar in there, right? Love them as those. I'm with you though. I think they're just a little too rigid and they're not my cup of tea as a chapter. I can understand why some people do probably like them, but man, all of the complaints that you and I have about the sisters.
Oh, they're all
present in this book.
In one chapter. Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's almost as though we don't know how to, don't really know how to write good, faithful characters.
And I'm not even sure that's it, because there are people I know who love this book. They loved it. Like, this is so great. I love the Black Templars. Like, this just hit everything. And okay, again, maybe that's just not our thing. It's fair. It's like,
might be
like chaos is not my thing. But
totally fair.
But isn't that what's so wonderful about this universe, is that there is something that will attract somebody?
Literally something for everybody. And that is, I am reminded that, it just depends on what you're looking for, right? Mm-hmm. There is something for everyone. This wasn't mine. It's a good thing we like humans, though, because I think our next book is nothing but humans.
I think so. Oh, got it snagged here.
As we read Leontis, Lord of Solar. Is that what it is?
Lord Solar.
Lord Solar. Thank you. I just made the post for this too.
Which, I don't even know who he is, what he does. I know nothing about this character.
He's a Lord Solar.
Okay, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, of like the Segmentum Solar. I'm going to be really honest. I'm passingly familiar with this character as well. So I'm very...
I've never even heard of him. So I find that interesting, because like with all the Warhammer 40k character books, like Helbrecht, Lilith Hesperax, and a Cypher, I've heard all of those guys. Actually, I hadn't heard of Helbrecht, but as soon as they said he was the Grand Marshal of the Black Templars, like, oh, well, I can figure out easily who he is. No idea who this guy is.
Yeah, he, all I know is that he's the Lord of the Astra Militarum for the Segmentum Solar. So, I mean, he's a big deal. He's,
well, that explains
the guy.
The Roman clothes.
Yes.
On the, yeah.
I don't know. I'm excited. I'm really excited to read it. I think it'll be a good change of pace. Actually, our next 3 books are all human focused. So,
this is true.
Which, oh my God, I just spilled water everywhere. Oh. Oh my goodness, you cannot take me anywhere.
And that's a sign that it's probably time for us to go. Like, instead of the ducks coming down, we have water spilled. So, oh, well, hope you didn't need that.
No, it's water's everywhere. My husband's going to come in here to play Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and be like, what have you done to my desk? Don't ask.
You livened it up a bit. God.
It was a contentious podcast. Very, very contentious. You want to take us out, Karen?
Yeah, I sure will while you're cleaning that up. So you've listened to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Broken Crusade by Stephen B. Fischer. Be sure to join us next time for Leontis, Lord Solar by Rob Young. We are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those wonderful things to the vidcast on YouTube and Spotify, or the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Come join our Discord. We have good discussions in there. People share what they're painting. People are right now, they're sharing their Lord of the Rings stuff. So I was like, that's pretty cool. I don't have anything to share because I don't paint, but I like looking at stuff. Our site also has articles about our adventures and reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the other book club books, so please stay a while and read from a crag. Did you clean up your Exxon Valdez spill?
I cleaned up my my oil spill here, and I would like to point out to everybody with this linen-bound book, I've only had to take the anti-fur roller to it twice.
Today?
Do not read in bed when you own a dog that sheds and 2 cats. I'm just going to throw that out there.
That's word of advice. All right.
Word of advice. Life hack.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.